This is the first in a series of 3 7-part tutorials on how to improve at Smash, now with better audio quality. These first few tips are pretty short and simple, so if you're already familiar, then you have my permission to skip ahead to part 2. If you don't know why Mewtwo mains should avoid grassy stages though, then you'd better hang around, I'll catch you up. The first 7 tips are all about how to flip the momentum back into your favor after taking a hit, starting at knockback mitigation and then slowly transitioning back to our neutral game. Number 1. Crouch cancelling. This one's pretty situational, but it makes up for that by being so easy to pull off. If you get hit whilst crouching, you only take half of the knockback. This can mean surviving hits that would have killed at higher percentages that you'd rather not block, and perhaps more importantly, it can mean that you can take hits at lower percentages and have less recovery time than your opponent. In some situations, you can use this when going for a trade and surprise your opponents by ending up with an advantage. Again, it's very situational, but since most people just disregard it, it's a nice tool to catch somebody off guard with. Number 2. Hit stun shuffling. This is for that brief moment where you've taken a hit and you're able to manipulate your position before you start your launch. You'll probably recognize it as the freeze frame when something like the Knee of the North lands and you just stand there stunned for a bit. To keep things as simple as possible, when this happens you're able to minimally change your position by rapidly wiggling the stick in your desired direction. Since Smash Forward's been crazy nerfed, but it's still incredibly useful when you want to slip out of a combo or a multi-hit move. It's for Bayo. It's just for Bayo. Number 3. Directional influence. Directional influence, or DI, is a completely different way to move around after taking a hit, but this one manipulates where you're launching off to. It might be best to think of it as curving a bullet or maybe just angling a cannon. It sounds complicated, but it's really simple once you know what it is. You cannot affect how far you go, but you can affect in which direction, so you just pick whichever direction will put you in the best ending position. If you're going to die off the side, you want to angle upwards, and if you're going off the top, that's when you decide whether you want to stay in close or create some distance. Number 4. Techs and breakfalls. Kind of an obvious one, but also something people kind of just forget about is that you have 4 different options when you go barreling towards a stage after a bad hit. You can land face first, which will leave you either bouncing or in a get up animation. You can press shield just as you land to get back up right away, or you can tech whilst holding a direction to quickly roll onto your feet and make some distance. The obvious first step is to learn how to do it with some consistency, but then you're going to want to learn which option is safest for each situation. On top of that, see how your opponent is teching and try to get in their head and see what they're going to try and do. If you're a rushdown person, then they'll probably roll away, and if they're a rushdown person, they'll probably roll in. So that's a free punish if they don't mix it up. Last but not least, in situations where you're bouncing off the bottom of the stage, you can always tech a wall or a roof to save that stock. Number 5. Understanding the subtle nuances of each stage. Every stage is different, even on Omega mode. All of them have different underbellies, different ledges, different drop-offs, and some of them have grass. I'm not joking, grass presents a fundamental change to every player's mobility. It's a factor that you can use to your advantage. I'm being serious. For the purposes of this video, I'm not going to go over how each subtle detail favors each different character on the roster. I'm going to leave that up to you to experiment with, but I'll bring up the most important bits. If you're a character with good aerial mobility, you're going to want stages like Lilac Cruise where you can recover, but your opponent will struggle with the difficult ledge shapes. You can get back on the stage no problem, but if they get knocked under the stage, you'll have to be very precise with their recovery moves. If you don't have jumps, then you're going to want wall jumps and friendlier edges. If you're still anxious about the thing about the grass, here's the part of the video where I explain it. If the floor is green, then you slide around less. So, if your opponent relies on sliding up smashes, maybe they're a Fox, Mewtwo, or one of those 5 guys who plays Palutena, pick a stage that's green. Woolly World clearly doesn't count though, that's clearly made of wool, not grass. Let's just try to be rational about this. Alright. Number 6. Recovering from the ledge. Here's another one that I feel like people don't think about enough. There are 5 ways you can recover once you've grabbed the ledge: rolling with a dodge, attacking with a normal, jumping with a jump, dropping down with down, or just standing up by pressing left or right. Each one has its own advantages, but that also means that it's easy for your opponent to try and trick you. Rolling has a lot of invincibility frames, so you might think it's the safest way to get in, but it's also got the most recovery, so your opponent may just smash you right back off the ledge. Dropping and jumping basically just put you in a situation where you have to either attack or face landing leg later on, so if your opponent places the right kind of pressure on you, you might just end up on the ledge again without any invincibility frames this time. Honestly, I think standing up is best for most situations since it has the least lag on it, but also it doesn't have much invincibility, so don't default to it. Use it when your opponent is expecting anything else. Number 7. Rage. Most people are already aware of this one because it sucks and they hate it, but in case you are unaware, here goes. The higher your percentage gets, the more you get knocked back, but you also get a small boost to the knockback you put out. The idea is that with this tiny buff you'll have more of an incentive to play aggressively at high percentages, but in practice it basically just makes it harder to combo when you're beat up and some close matches end on anticlimactic aerials. If you want to use this tool to your advantage, then you'd best be playing a heavy character who can build up percentage no problem, a character with quick tilts that can KO enemies when they don't expect it, or Lucario, who already had it in Brawl, so now he can just double up. If you play anybody else, just try not to drop your combos and recognize some of those moments where a tiny bit of extra distance will make all the difference. So now you know the complexities behind knockback and a little bit about optimizing your recovery. Those little mechanical tidbits pretty much cover all the subtle nuances of how to get hit and still end up okay, but next we're going on the offensive. I hope you'll join me in the next vid where we'll be discussing mobility, offense, and pressure. See you there.